Hello everyone, DonTheCrown here, and we just got the patch notes for the mid-season, Season 4 patch notes, and we're going to go through all of them. There is quite a bit to go through, quite a bit. This is going to be a pretty big patch notes. I might skip over some of the stuff, or kind of go through it faster, but really what we're looking for here is to figure out kind of like what types of changes they're going to be making, kind of especially in the middle of the season. And let's just hop right into it. So first off, they say we greatly appreciate everyone's excitement since the launch of Season 4 and are very happy with the state of the game. The changes in this patch are aimed at buffing classes and builds that are not performing as well as their counterparts. We are also slightly reducing the difficulty of the pit to ensure that most builds are able to get to tier 60 to get their final tier of masterworking materials. And this to me is really good, because I think that being able to get to tier 60 is something that every single build should be able to do. Although I think most builds are at least able to do that, but that's probably content creator viewpoint there. First up, in terms of balance updates, general, looks like they're increasing the amount of, I thought this was going to be a nerf, increasing the amount of healing by quite a bit. 50% initial healing here, another 100% here, and then the later healing potions are going to heal you for 200% more per just the initial healing. So it's probably help with like poison, but we'll have to see. They're making an aspect of the protector, which is a aspect that gives you a barrier every 30 seconds. Now it's 20%. That's pretty good. Andariel's Visage, now the Poison Nova. This is an uber unique. They're called mythic unique items. Interesting that they are changing the name. No longer uber uniques, but they're mythic uniques. And so Andariel's Visage, the Poison Nova, now spawns on the enemy instead of the player and does more damage. They're also increasing the damage of Doombringer's Shadow Explosion by 100%. And they're making Starless Skies even better. So more maximum stacks of resource cost reduction and bonus damage increase from 4 to 5. This increases the maximum amount of resource cost reduction and bonus damage from 40% to 50%. Starless Skies was already pretty good. Next up, Tyrael's Might. Divine Barrage damage is increased by 100%. Well, I'm glad I'm making this whirlwind speed farming barb using Tyrael's Might. Let's just say I hit level 35, was able to equip my Tyrael's Might, and then I proceeded to just go to world tier 4 because it does so much damage. So Tyrael's Might's now like, I guess, the best mythic unique for leveling IMO, especially if you're using a build that can spam skills. Just absolutely ludicrous, which is a good thing to see. I'm also glad to see that Harlequin Crest is not on the list of mythic uniques that they're buffing, because it's already so freaking good. Let's see here. So Paragon, stat requirements for non-main stats reduced by 90 to 60 per Paragon board. This is really good because before everybody was using all stats like on their weapons, but now since they aren't available on weapons anymore, and so that kind of hurt a lot of Paragon boards, but it like didn't set, I think, Barb back as much as other classes. A class's main stat is the one that increases damage of all their skills. For example, Sork's main stat is intelligence, so this change affects their rare Paragon nodes that have threshold bonuses for dex and willpower. The stat requirements to activate any rare node increases for each Paragon board you progress through. Some of these nodes that require non-main stats were harder to activate than intended. This change makes it easier to activate these nodes, especially later on. That's good. Whirlwind getting a 15% damage boost. Violent Whirlwind, the damage bonus is increased from 30 to 35%. That's good. Call of the Ancients just getting a damage boost. The Prime Call of the Ancients, which is, gives you a damage boost, is getting a bigger thing. That's good. Frenzy is getting a damage boost. I personally think the Frenzy needs a tempering change. Right now, the tempering for Frenzy is horrible. Hopefully it's something that they change next season. And right now it's just like increases the damage by 8%. It's not very good because the tempering just increases the duration of it, which kind of doesn't matter. Flay getting more damage. Enhanced Flay is giving more vulnerable duration, which is good. Battle Flay is getting more damage. Combat Flay. So all this stuff, like Flay, can be a lot more reasonable to do, and increases buff duration. You know, all this is really, really rather nice. Big add for Bleed Barb, which is maybe like one of the stronger builds in Endgame right now for Barbs. So, okay. Ooh. So Pressure Point, they're changing it. So the core skills used to have a 10% chance to lucky hit to apply vulnerable. Now it's core and weapon mastery. It's still 10%, which I think is rather low per point, especially because your core and weapon mastery skills aren't things that you spam as much as you spam like your basic attacks or whatever. And so this is a little bit better, a little bit of improvement. Let's see here. Tough as nail. Additional thorns as bleeding damage is increased. So a buff for Thorns Barb. Okay. Walking Arsenal. Damage per unique source of weapon damage is increased from 10 to 12%. So they're trying to get weapon or Walking Arsenal to be more viable. Right now, I don't think almost anybody's using this right now. So we'll see. Tempering Blows. They're making this a little bit better. Slaking Aspect. They're making Slaking Aspect when a core skill deals direct damage to at least one bleeding enemy, and your maximum fury is increased by 5 to 20%. This is rather interesting because this makes this an aspect that you definitely want to have on Hoda, because that's like a multiplier right there, and it has a chance to give you back fury. You could also potentially use this on Whirlwind, because more max fury is really, really good, and also chance to gain fury back when you use a core skill like Whirlwind would be hitting a lot, so a lot of chance to proc here, which is pretty good, pretty nice. Dust Devil's aspect, the Whirlwind Dust Devil damage is getting 100% increase. That's very, very nice. Aspect of Relentless Arms Master, increased fury generation when Walking Arsenal is active, and now it's the same amount, but it also gets 15% reduced fury cost to your skills while they're all active. I think that this is still okay. I think Walking Arsenal needs some love, and one of the things that they should have done here, instead of like increasing the damage, they should have made it so that the time that the buff is up is longer, because having to like manage the buff, like using 3 different skills, is pretty difficult for a lot of builds. And also just like makes this, like Walking Arsenal has a higher like player difficulty compared to other options. Gore's Devastating Grips continues to get more and more and more buffs. They nerfed the ever-loving crap out of this back in preseason, and it's just constantly trying to get it back to where, you know, it's still pretty strong. Ancient's Oath getting a little bit of love. I think that without having tempers on this, it's gonna be really hard to justify. However, you know, 60% more damage is quite a bit of damage now, especially if you're not playing something like Bash that takes advantage of that. Druid's gonna get a whole bunch of buffs. So Gift of the Stag, maximum spirit increase from 20 up to 40. Thorns from Prickle Skin, this is all spirit boon stuff, is doubled. Advantageous Beast reduces the duration of control of pairing effects by 15%. Now it still gives you that, but it also gives you movement speed. So previously, I don't think anybody would pick this. Now 15% movement speed is like, that's the whole thing. And then they also threw this in here. I think 15% movement speed is very nice, especially for leveling. You get 5% more crit from Scythe Talons. You get more life here, more attack speed here, more spirit restored, increase from Energize, more fortify from bolsters. Obsidian Slam they cut the number of kills required for overpower from 20 to 10. I feel like this used to originally be 10, and then they realized that people were basically like in Nightmare Dungeons just always having this up all of the time, so they nerfed it. But it's not really all that big of a deal. Like if you're killing normal mobs and you're just getting guaranteed overpowers, that's fine, because you eventually run out of mobs. You're not able to like really nuke bosses with this. Rabies gets more poisoning damage. Pulverized damage is increased by 76%. Oh boy. Pulverize is back on the menu. So not only does it get like a pretty nice quality of life buff up here, this is like almost doubling the damage. There's some other skills that I'm hoping to see some damage stuff for. Barbarian is not really one of those classes that I expected to see like real big damage buffs. But Sorc, I'm hoping to see a lot of big buffs like this. Holy moly. Raging Pulverize. Enemies overpowered by Pulverize is stunned. Now, Pulverize deals 30% increase overpower damage. And enemies overpowered by it are stunned. So they basically just added 30% multiplier here if you're overpowering. That is really good. That makes Pulverize like a real skill, a real build that you can build around with some real big multipliers. This is very good. Next up, Nature's Fury. Chance to trigger a freeze skill of the opposite category is increased from 30 to 35. Perfect Storm, more damage increase. Just a lot of damage increase here. Damage to distance increased. Poisoning amount increased. This is all good stuff. Like lots of love here for Druid. Quick Shift, maximum damage bonus increase. Defense posture. Now you're increasing the amount of fortify you gain from all sources, and you also gain more damage reduction while fortified. Pretty much anything that gives you raw damage reduction is really good. And the reason for that is because they like basically removed it from gear altogether this season. And so being able to get it from anywhere else just means that it's a lot more valuable because it's like its own separate bucket of damage reduction. Mending, while in werebear form, you receive additional healing from all sources, and you also gain additional max life, so even more life stacking, which is rather good, especially if you're playing an overpower build. Overpower likes more life to be, had. Time in werebear form required from overpower has been reduced from like 16 down to 12 seconds. I still think that this is probably not worth investing in, and probably could be changed to be something a little bit better, but whatever. Aspect of Trampled Earth, landslide damage increased basically from 80% to 100%. That's pretty nice. Subterranean, another 5% damage here. Werewolf Companion damage is increased from 115 to 130. That's pretty good. This is like two-hander status now. That's a pretty big number. Shred damage when cast above 50 spirit increased from 25% up to 35%. That's good. Constricting Tendrils Legendary Node damage increased from 120% to 150%. That seems pretty nice. And then Dominate Cliff got a little bit of a buff. So overall, I think that Druid definitely got more love all over the place, where you saw like Barbarian got a couple of skills, a couple of things buffed. Druid just got like very wide ranging changes to, especially like spirit boons and stuff. These are things that don't just affect one build. This is like every single Druid build was buffed. Every single Druid build was buffed with these changes. And so if you're playing playing werewolf, you're playing bear, you're playing human form, you probably got some sort of buff here. So every single Druid build was buffed, which is really cool. All right, next up, Necromancers. Skirmishers, sacrifice upgrades. So looks like all Book of the Dead stuff first. So they're increasing like crit chance, resistance to all elements. And so some of these are ones that like you don't think you would really pick most of the time. And so they're just trying to make the like secondary options a little bit more appealing. So Shadow Mages, now more maximum essence, and also gives you essence generation. So this kind of stuff can be really good for like Bone Spear style builds. Cold Mage, vulnerable damage. Bone Mage, overpower. Bone Golem, sacrifice for attack speed. Bone Golem, sacrifice upgrade, or Blood Golem for more max life. And then Iron Golem for critical strike damage. And so like, yeah, a lot of these are things that people normally don't pick. Just trying to make them a little bit more appealing. Some Paragon stuff, so more maximum damage here from Blood begets Blood. Fortify bonus has been increased from 7 to 10% on Blood Drinker Glyph. Desecration Glyph, the shadow damage bonus has been increased. Gravekeeper Glyph, the damage bonus increased from 2% to 3%, up to a maximum of 12 to 18% for every close corpse. And that's pretty not bad. That's a pretty big number there, 18% for every close corpse. Legendary aspects. So we're not really seeing a bunch of necro stuff here. Interesting. So sacrifice bonus has been increased. So when you're not using minions, it's now going from 10 to 25% to 30 to 50% bonus on sacrifice. So that's pretty large. I know they made minions a lot more appealing, but if you're one of these necromancers that doesn't really like minions and wanted to kind of like be more spell focused, they made the sacrifice aspect a lot better. That is a pretty big difference. Shielding storm aspect. Every time the bone storm deals damage to an enemy, you gain a barrier equal to a percentage of your base life. Now it's maximum life. And so this is a lot more usable for sure. So what we saw here for Necromancer is definitely probably a little bit more tame than the other two classes so far. Basically, the Book of the Dead now has a lot more options for you to pick from. And Paragon got a little bit of love, and a couple of the aspects get love. Definitely the most tame out of all of the classes so far. Next up, Rogue. It looks like Melee is getting love. So Twisting Blades and Flurry are both getting buffs, which is pretty interesting. The initial damage and return damage for Twisting Blades both getting buffs. Flurry getting a buff. Overall, I think this is good. Passives, Exposure. Lucky Hit no longer requires direct damage to proc, and they'll also work with damage over time. Okay. Sturdy, damage reduction is increased. Like I said before, any sort of damage reduction that you can get is a very good thing. So this is like 6% more damage reduction into a rogue's kit. Mending Obscurity, while stealth, you heal for some of your maximum life. Now it's when entering stealth and every second you are stealthed, you heal for a little bit more of your max life. So from 4, 8, 12 to 5, 10, 15, and you get like an initial heal right away. So I guess this is kind of nice for survivability reasons. Paragon, the versatility glyph, non-basic and non-core skill damage is increased by like 10%. That's nice for, you know, helping that out. I think that that's like probably a big buff to like, there's kind of like a lucky hit rain of arrows thing going on right now with the Heart Seeker for rogues. And I think that this is probably a big, big buff to that. Fluidity glyph, when you cast an agility skill, you get increased energy regen. Now you get increased damage and gain even more energy regen. So this definitely makes this a lot better than it was before. This is like a damage buff now, not just energy regen, which is kind of the things that glyphs need to have damage on them or significant damage reduction to make them a viable choice, or give you some sort of unique mechanic like cooldown reduction for particular skills. Explosive glyph, the damage reduction is increased. Damage reduction is good. Same thing with diminish. For legendary aspects, Blade Dancer's aspect got a huge buff. Damage increased from 30 to 60, now up to 50 to 80%. That like 80% damage increase is definitely like a two-hander angle right there, which is nice. Aspect of Artful Initiative, energy required to drop grenades has been reduced. They've been trying to like get people to use grenades and stuff and other like flat procky things, like same with tornadoes. So it looks like they're trying to make these like grenade builds happen. Maybe maybe it'll be a thing. When using Shadow Step, grenades now drop at the location the player teleports to instead of where they teleported from. This also increases the grenade damage by 200%, which is a lot of damage. This only changes when where the grenades drop when using Shadow Step, but not Evade. Okay. Trickster's aspect increases the grenade damage even more. I think they're really trying to make grenade be a thing. Enshrouding aspect, the time required for Dark Shroud reduced from 3 to 2, making this a little bit more appealing. Umbrous aspect, critical strikes with marksman skills have a chance to grant a free Dark Shroud Shadow or Dark Shroud Shadow. Now critical strikes have a chance to grant... Oh, now it's not just marksman skills. So it's anything at all that's critting can give you a shroud, which, especially if you have like I don't know, like Twisting Blades, for example, could like give you lots of shrouds this way, which would be pretty cool. Aspect of Arrow Storms, damage increase. Bonus damage dealt by all Arrow Storms has been increased even more. I think this probably helps the Heartseeker build, would be my guess. And then Vengeful Aspect, Arrow Storm damage increased some more. Unique items, Eyes in the Dark. Previous, it was Death Trap deals increased damage. Unless it hits the boss or player, Death Trap will continue to rearm itself until it kills an enemy. And now it deals even more damage and will automatically rearm itself a second time. Which I think is good. I think it's good for bossing for sure. And then Saboteur's Signet, grenade damage increased by 50%. That's good. So Rogue, I think, definitely got a little bit more attention to particular skills. Like their glyphs got a little bit more love. Melee for them definitely got a little bit of love as well. We see a lot of stuff around the grenades. I feel like they didn't really think that the grenade stuff that they added for rogues was really hitting in the way that they wanted it to. And so they're adding a whole bunch of extra numbers to this to kind of hope that it hits off. And maybe we'll see some sort of grenade rogue popping off here after the patch goes live. Next up, we have the Sorc or Sorcerer. And I'm really, really hoping that this is a huge section because I love Sorc. It's my favorite class, but it kind of feels like it's missing a lot, especially in the single target area. And so hopefully there's a lot of good stuff here. So Ice Armor, the barrier amount increased from 30% of base to 25% of max life. This is pretty good. Sorc doesn't really stack max life like Barbarian does. However, making it based on your maximum life instead of your base is very nice, especially as we start to get more max life from other different locations. This is a big buff. Even though the number goes down, this is definitely a buff for sure. Shimmering Teleport, the duration increased from 3 to 4 seconds. This is nice. Incinerate, damage reduction is increased from 15 to 20%. I was hoping to see a little bit of a damage buff still for Incinerate. Well, leveling, it's insane, super fun, like kind of exploding tons of enemies, but then single target damage and bosses really feels like you hit a wall, especially if you try to go like to Uber Lilith or something. I was really not enjoying that after the first day. Let's see here. Potent Warding, maximum resistance is increased, and additional functionality no longer excludes base skill casts. So when you cast a skill, I think this increases your maximum resistance for that particular type. And now this is going to include basic skill casts. It's kind of good. Glass Cannon is getting a buff. The additional damage taken has been reduced from 9% down to 6%. And looks like it's just going down by 2. Actually, that's more than 2%. So 1%, and then 2%, and then 3%. So since a lot of people tend to get more ranks of Glass Cannon, maybe that will like be significant reduction of damage taken at higher ranks, which is very, very nice because I feel like you take a lot of damage with Glass Cannon right now. Align the Elements, persistence duration increased from 2 to 3 seconds. And also one of the reasons why Sorc kind of has this problem right now is because Glass Cannon does increase the amount of damage you take. So it kind of feels like right now it's a class where you kind of either need to be permanently immune to damage or dead. So this kind of will help out a little bit with having you have a little bit more damage reduction just naturally baked into your kit. Let's see here. Conduction, movement speed increased from 369 to 4812. More movement speed is good. Longer duration is good. Electrocution, reduced enemy damage dealt increased from 15% to 18%. That's also nice. Warmth, healing per nearby burning enemy has been... Wait, what? Oh, wow. So they increased this by from 0.9 to 1.5, and healing per nearby burning boss from 1.8 to 6%. So you're basically, if you're fighting a boss that's burning and you have warmth, you can get like 6% heal per second. That can like add up quite a lot. Now, I know a lot of builds don't end up taking warmth, but this is definitely good for a fire build. Bonus damage while healthy has been increased from 9% to 12%. This is pretty big. This definitely puts it into like a territory where you might want this on an amulet now. Overflowing energy cooldown reduction from hitting enemies has been increased from 2.5 to 3.5 seconds. This is like the key passive at the bottom. I rather like this for ball lightning. Unfortunately, it doesn't really give you a lot of damage, but having more cooldowns is always a good thing. Avalanche, getting more bonus damage is good. Combustion, getting a pretty big buff here from 2% from a unique source to 4%. That's pretty nice. Basically, it seems like they're just giving to every key passive here, making it better, which means that just like Druid, every single Sorc build has been buffed, which is nice. So Estus Ferocity, you get more critical strike chance. Shatter, you're getting more damage. Kind of like the big endgame build right now has Shatter in it, where you like freeze everything and Fireball explodes stuff. And so, you know, that's kind of nice to have. Veer's Mastery, the bonus damage increased by another 5%. Bonus damage after critical, another 5%. So that's very good. And then we have a whole bunch of aspects here. So aspect of concentration, damage reduction is increased from 20% to 25%. That's very good. Additional chain lightning chains up from 4 to 5. I don't think chain lightning is in a really good spot right now. And I'm not sure that this is going to be enough to fix it, but you know, it's a little buff for sure. Chance to cast an additional shock skill is increased from 30% to 40% with the overwhelming currents. Mage Lord's aspect previously was 6 to 9 damage reduction for every close enemy, up to 18 to 27. Now it's just 6 to 9 flat, and that's tripled while fighting a close enemy. I guess that just means if an enemy is close. So now if you're fighting a boss, you can get like 27% damage reduction while you're like face tanking a boss. Oh yeah, and someone in chat said that you could possibly do ranks of warmth because you'd be getting like 2% per rank here. So if you had like an additional 8 ranks of that, you'd be healing like a third of your maximum health per second, which definitely wouldn't stop you from getting one shot, but could be interesting for sure. Aspect of Shattered Stars, meteorites damage has been increased. This is good. Meteor, I think, still needs a little bit of love in terms of like making it just go faster. Aspect of Frozen Memories, additional casts increased. Battlecaster's aspect, the maximum stacks also increased. That's also pretty good. Flame Scar. So Flame Scar is kind of in this really weird spot right now where basically you have a skill that is supposed to be using this particular unique, and nobody's using the unique because it's way better just to have a two-hander with the flamethrower aspect on this. And I don't know if 35% damage increase for the embers is going to be enough, to be honest with you. Maybe, but probably not. Like losing having flamethrower on a two-hander, probably not worth having Flame Scar. Essador Overflowing Cameo. I think that they need to like triple the damage of this amulet to have it be anything but hot trash. Especially in season 2 where I saw a lot of people running this. It was, for me, a good indicator of somebody that was following, just like randomly just putting this on. I don't know, like this was just bad. This thing did like 1/10 of the damage of one ball lightning tick at a lucky hit chance when you pick something up. It was just really, really bad unique, and needs a lot more damage. Especially because like you don't really have a lot of aspect slots on Sorc in the first place. This thing just makes me angry. Staff of Endless Rage, bonus damage increased from 40 to 60% up to 70%. That's good. And Gloves of the Illuminator, their damage penalty has been reduced. I personally don't really feel like uniques should have a damage penalty unless the thing that they're providing is giving a huge damage boost. I'm not really sure if the gloves are actually doing that. All right, and so that's it for Sorc and for all the classes. Personally, I'm a little bit disappointed with Sorc stuff. Right now, they are super struggling to kill single targets, and I don't really see anything here that's gonna fix that. Like all Sorc builds did get kind of a buff here with like buffing up the key passives here. They buffed 5 of them. And I don't really think that that is enough. I really just don't. I think that Sorc is still like in the roughest spot. Now Sorc is doing really, really well on the like max roll pit leaderboards because people are permanently immune to damage. But I would expect 100% to see perma flame shield uptime completely removed next season. So this just really doesn't do enough for Sorcs to kind of like get them in line with a lot of the other classes right now. Which is a little bit disappointing. Well, hopefully next season we'll see some adjustments past this. Next up, Endgame. Health and damage levels have been reduced in the pit, and the adjustment is most significant as you approach tier 60, so you can fully participate in Masterworking. We're adjusting the pit so more players can enjoy a smoother endgame progression experience. I feel like they probably didn't actually need to do this, and they could have just lowered the pit down like 10 tiers or something, closer to what it was on the beta, so that you could have gotten it just a little bit earlier. Yeah. All tormented bosses have had their health reduced by 30%. This includes blood boils from Tormented Echo of Lilith. Oh my gosh. Frickin' Echo of Lilith, man. Blood boils driving me crazy. This is the thing that actually like kind of made me like rage out on my Incinerate Sorc, because I couldn't kill a blood boil or blood blister thing in Lilith that just wouldn't die. And yeah, feeling pretty bad. So bug fixes. They fixed an issue where Holy Bolt's elixir with damage was scaling unintentionally high when it was triggered from pets such as Necromancer's minions. So Holy Bolt's elixir now deals a percentage of your weapon damage rather than a percentage of the enemy's health. This change is intended to reduce its effectiveness against tougher enemies and higher tiers of pit, but will still be really valuable for players throughout the whole game. We made this change alongside the reduction of the health of the enemies in the pit, so players who are delving deep in the pit aren't heavily affected. So this probably also affects Barbarian bleed, so that they are not getting the same ridiculous scaling. And I think this is good. Holy Bolt's elixir is nice, but it's going to be painful next season when it is removed, because this is kind of like one of these seasonal things that we have. And it is definitely like something that doesn't really feel like a seasonal mechanic, but it definitely is. And it's probably making certain builds have better clear than they should. And so dialing it down a little bit, I think is fine. They have fixed an issue where casting boulders of Dolmen Stone would cause it to not cast at all. Boulders now have a limit at 10, but their damage is increased by 10% for each boulder. I think that boulder Druid is just having a lot of issues, and hopefully this fixes them. Sounds like they're running into some sort of like damage limit or something, or unit limit or something that was bugging it out. I think that that's pretty bad. Hopefully there's an easy way to be able to tell if you have a limit of 10 that are up, but it'll probably be hard to do. I think that this probably needs to be reworked completely, because right now it feels very thrown together. Fixed an issue with rapid fire with Scoundrel's Kiss equipped, couldn't properly hit close targets, and would sometimes fire projectiles behind the player. This also increases the radius of explosions by 25%. And they fixed an issue where pets would be counted as minions in various cases. Yeah, I saw Necromancers like casting Blood Surge off of their minions. I know that as a Barbarian, my pet gets like some sort of benefit from my shouts right now. So it's kind of weird. But overall, I think there's some good patches. It's definitely for the middle of the season. Like it's all, for the most part, upside, all buffs. We're not seeing things that are like getting nuke nerfed because like they're too OP. Probably the Holy Bolts fix is the only thing that's really getting nerfed. I expect to kind of see like Bash get tempered down a little bit, probably Flame Shield getting tempered down, but we're not seeing that at all. So hopefully these will be good notes. I don't know when exactly these are going to launch, but very excited to see this patch happen. We have more information coming soon about stuff like Season 5, the upcoming expansion, and a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm pretty excited about that. Hopefully you guys let me know what you guys think about these patches down in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.